Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. This is the first time that we've had the Microtalks show format as part of Video Game Makers Unite here at the Capital Factory. My name is John Henderson. Why don't we give one hand to Capital Factory for being our site host for this evening. We got everything in the box. I don't even have to rent the chairs. The way this is going to work tonight is I have an opening comments and just making sure we take care of business for this, that, and the other. But then we have a series of speakers, not just one tonight. And we also have a intermission in between, so don't worry about you having to like hold it for a whole hour. But we'll be finishing up around 9 o'clock tonight. But wanted to draw everyone's attention. We're not going to have our next one of these shows. We do this at the second Thursday of every month right here at the Capital Factory, we'll be announcing our next speaker soon after this. But before that, we have the Global Game Jam, and there's actually going to be a side host for Austin at the HOFT Institute. And if you go to this short URL, you can sign up for it. If you need to look at it later, you can come up and squint at it, and then you get on the web and sign up for it.
So that's at the HOFT?
That'll be at the HOFT Institute offices, just within walking distance of West Campus and BT. And people will actually be able to do it all night. If you don't know what the Global Game Jam is, I recommend Googling it. But it is an opportunity for people to build a prototype game within 48 hours, constantly. You're not making a game, you're making a prototype, because honestly that's about as much time as you have to do it. But you get to work with people and put yourself to the test in what you know about game development, and it ought to be fun. We do have a sponsor tonight, the Intel Incubator program. What do you want to talk about, Tyler?
I was just going to say, if you have any questions about Global Game Jam, find me after the talk.
Yeah, okay. Tyler knows about it. He's done it before, so.
I'm doing more than knowing about it.
He even knows how many people signed up so far.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
500.
What was I talking about? Oh yeah. Yeah, I completely blew my train of thought. What did I just say before? Intel Innovator Program is our sponsor this evening. I've been asked to give a summary of each of the speakers' talks tonight, and they'll be appreciative of that. So since we give a hand to the Capital Factory, thanks for Intel for the food and drink for this evening. And we do this every time, so is there anyone, let's talk about jobs and people who are looking for jobs and people who want to hire. Let's start on this side of the room. If you're looking for work, please stand up, identify yourself by name, and what your specialty is and whether you have a website. And it's fine if you just came to hear people talk, that's fine. But every so often we get some people who are actually looking to enter the industry. Okay, if you want to.
Yep. So hi, my name is Andrew Watson. I'm going to be handling timekeeping today. I'm not desperate for work, but I just recently got my MBA and I'd like to get back into the game industry after I spent about a year working in QA, and I realized I probably should get some type of real skill to come in and kind of push at that concrete ceiling. So
What do you do with an MBA?
looking at?
Run a
Producer?
Yeah.
who knows? I'll do whatever. Honestly, I know I need to build experience in the field. So
Yeah, there's plenty of indies like us that have no idea what we're doing in business.
Yes, right.
yeah,
Do you know how to find money?
I could
That would be
try to
amazing.
find money.
Do investments?
Find money, yeah, do investments.
We'll talk about it later.
And one thing I didn't
What?
I didn't plan for you. People actually want to talk to me.
I had a swear thing with my personal.
That is the thing about Texas,
I have a
we know
box
there's
of
money
them.
in here, but it's difficult to find people who know how to get at it. Most of the time, it seems like people have the solution is for them to have a staff member to be located in California so they can interface with the DC market. This side of the room, anyone looking for a job? Jeff?
Yeah. So, hey, I'm Jeffrey Dillon. I specialize in all things audio, music, sound effects, voiceover, ambulances, the implementation, you name it, you hear it, I can do it. You check me out on the web at jmcmillanmusic.com. I got cards, you can see me. Thanks.
I know.
Good evening, my name is Christopher Williams. I too recently got my MBA in marketing, and but I'm also a writer and illustrator, so anything communications based If you want an orator, I'm quite well spoken. And if you need anything in communications, anything, or any odd jobs of any sort in the field, I am trying to break in.
Very good. Any more on this side of the room? Well, yeah. How about people looking to hire? Any of those? Mojdeh.
So I'm with Certain Affinity. I'm one of the speakers for this evening. We have roughly about 27 openings, and some of them are on the business side of the house. There's a lot more on the development side. So if you are interested, please take a look, and I will be here, so you are welcome to come out.
Certain Affinity, the largest independently owned employer of game developers in Austin, now working on a very large original IP, among other things. USA Tim.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm Tim Porter, Underminer Studios. I'm looking for, obviously, we're trying to get investment, do investment round. We're doing a couple of really interesting projects right now. Most of the time we work with people like Intel. We're actually part of the Intel Innovation Program. So if anybody's looking to try to get into the innovation program, if you do anything VR, AR, MR related, video games, if you do IoT, networking, if you do anything that's really just bizarre, off the wall, or really interesting, and you like to, talk to people at Intel, pushing contact. As well, what we're specifically looking for, like I said, we're going to be doing some investment rounds, so we're going to be trying to hit up and trying to invest a volumetric capture project that we're working on right now, and we're putting it in front of a couple of very large companies, hopefully, especially if we can get past our first seed round. So there's that, and then possibly marketing. We have a marketing person, but she may need some help. And developers, artists, coders, and just come by. I always like talking to people. All right, that's me. Thanks.
Don't pick that up because I'm going to put you to work with it. Anyone else to MJ?
So, we have
He said MJ.
go first. No, it's too late. It's awkward. Stand up.
Don't fight, please.
I am MJ. Shut up, John.
I run a studio called Sire Games. We're currently looking for a contract Unity developer with experience with C# and in-engine work. Contract is a few hours a week. So.
Now,
Cool.
you'll be standing up.
Say that down, John.
I'm Alicia, and we're currently looking for.
Oh,
So we have a summer camp after school program that teaches kids 8 to 18 game development, and we're always looking for developers to work with us. We need guest lectures, just come and talk to the kids about what you do. We also need guest judges. We're also looking for instructors for some of our after school programs and workshops. So if you're interested in teaching, and especially working with kids, it's super exciting and fun, which is what our talk is about. Come and talk to myself or Leif, and we'll be happy to give you more information. Yep.
I have been a judge and it was fun.
It is.
Some other people have been counselors as well, but and also they're well organized enough to pay stipends for people. So it's not just for the love of the work; it's also you're appreciated while you're there. But let's get this started. I'm going to be opening the speaker, but we have six speakers tonight. 2 of them are doubling up. But in any case, what I'm going to talk about. So I can figure out how this will work. Okay, we ready to go? Right. All right. So first, just the obligatory slide to talk about myself. I have never actually done this in any of this the times I've hosted this particular show, but my name is John Henderson, and I've been basically the guy that does lots of fun things for free to basically try to define what the community is around Austin game development. I really hate the word community. A lot of times it gets thrown around as though it was something ephemeral. I'd rather it be something that people could point at and say, that is an example of it. Austin has somewhere about 3,000 professional game developers and a whole lot of people who want to get into this space and people studying for it, but a lot of times people will come into town and they can't find where to begin with anything. So I've oftentimes been one of the people that have been around, and a lot of other people have helped me, including Gordon Walton, who took over this particular show back in December of 2016, and he had everything set up to go and had the speaker booked, and then he realized he was not going to be in the country that week. So he asked me about midnight over Facebook chat, was I available to host it for him, and I haven't screwed up so bad that he's told me to stay home, so I'm still here. This was actually, this
I had a one-word thought.
save it, please. Only 10 minutes here. This was actually a format Microtalks that I did with the IGDA chapter when I was an officer. And I haven't done it since 2015, and no one else has either. But we'll get to that point in a little bit. But I recently took a new gig with HOFT Institute, which is has been an avocational training school located just west of campus from UT Austin. And they are starting a new vocational training program for game development for all those people that have all the skills they need to potentially get a job in programming, design, or art, but can't land that all-important first job, which is always the hardest to get. This is an 8-month intensive evening program, and it's starting in 2 weeks, called the Game Design and Development Lab. But to talk about the particulars of the show, this was not my idea. This is not even unique to games. Pecha Kucha is more or less the same format, where you have a whole lot of speakers and you only give them a limited amount of time. Back at GDC, a guy named Richard LaMartian, who is one of the founders of Naughty Dog Studios and now teaches at USC, he'll do it, but his format is actually 5 minutes, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. A guy named Kane Shin, who was involved with the IGDA chapter many years ago, thought it was a great idea and ran it once, and then I decided to do it, and I did it a number more times. Had a lot of really cool places to run it, including the historic Studio 6A at KLRU, where they originally shot Austin City Limits, and that same stage is still there. So, you know, Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson, and Roy Orbison were singing on the same stage where we were talking about video games, so that was pretty cool. As well as Austin City Hall, which was apparently technically in advance of city ordinance, but we did it in the council chambers on the dais. Particular one was Chad Mossholder, who was at Sony Online as a sound designer, and right now he's at id, and he just shipped Doom. But we got to play a video that he did all the sound design for, featuring Mark Hamill as the Joker, played on the screens behind him in council chambers. That was fun. You can see some of the great pictures of the first one is actually in Studio 6A with Amanda Lepre on stage, and parts of the Good Old Girls Network of game developers in Austin, Sherry Greener Ray, Norma Jean Griffin, and Jennifer Bullard in the shot, as well as me right after a particular one that I had. That was the one where we actually had a show at the theater at Retora Studios, so I needed a big drink after that one. Why I like this format, why I think about game development is not enough people talk about really what matters. The game developers themselves don't get to talk about it. I run into people all the time who say, my parents don't know what I do. Well, why don't you tell them? And really, they probably don't have the words to say exactly what it is they do in ways that could be explained to everyone. And they're never going to get that unless they practice it. So this is an opportunity for them to do that. Experience certainly helps. You know, public speaking is a thing that you need to practice to get very good at, but not all the speakers are going to be that practiced, and please don't look at them as though you're judging them based on their experience. They're just presenting their own story the best way they know how, in a way that only they can do. Like I said, I kind of think that 5 minutes is really not enough time to be very substantial, so my limit is 10 minutes. It's enough to get a short point across, and as far as booking goes, if a speaker can't make it, I don't lose the show. I don't think I've actually organized one of these without at least one of the speakers not being able to make it, and in fact, one of our speakers that was booked had to bow out at the last minute, but no big deal. We still got a bunch of other speakers that you can enjoy tonight. But big admission is the people that I have booked on the panel tonight are people I want to see speak. I'm the one who's stacking the deck every time. Once upon a time, I was thinking I didn't need to come up with a theme for it, but then the speakers kept telling me they really appreciate having a theme. So this time it's audience. And it's up to them to figure out how to get an angle on that. There's some drawbacks, obviously. There's a 10-minute time limit for each speaker, and I've never pulled anyone off stage, and there have been people that have gone so long as 16 minutes. That's not encouraged, but really the spirit of 10 minutes is really a challenge on the part of the speaker to figure out how you can say something meaningful. A lot of times it's not going to be a complete thought, it's a really deep one, But if you structure it properly, then you can get the audience interested enough such that you can say enough to make them want to figure out the rest later and learn on their own in a way that actually engaged them rather than just sitting and listening to them talk. So again, depending on how the speaker approaches the challenge, they can go about it in a number of different ways. Typically, there's not a Q&A afterward. We probably will have time for that if any of the audience members would like to ask any of the speakers. I'll leave it up to them if they want to do that. We're going to have a number of different formats for the slides, so please bear with us as we figure out how to transition in between each of them. But you all can be patient and good like that. But now that I've done that, you are now aware. We're all in this together now. We'll be taking the journey together, 10 minutes at a time. Welcome to Microtalks. Thank you very much. So I also am glad to reintroduce the same timekeeper I've had for the entirety of like a dozen number of shows that we've done over the past 7 years. We've already met him, Henderson Watson, and I didn't have to train someone else to do it. But all the speakers know that he's right here, and he will let you know when you're running short on time. Let me make sure that I have the next bit of slides up before I introduce next speakers. And yeah. Good. Which way was it? Yeah. I probably should give it too far. This is the little. Come on. Cursors are hard to see.
You can do our presentation for us, John.
Yeah. What are you talking about here?
There are notes.
Great.
Using the arrows work?
No, it's actually interacting between all the different particular applications. But anyway, our second speaker tonight after us is actually two speakers. They are partners at a summer camp and after-school programs for teaching children ages 10 to 18 how to make video games. Please welcome Alicia Andrew and Leif Seifert.
Alright, so these are the 12 commandments by kids creating games. It's what rapid prototyping with kids can teach real-world game developers.
Alright, so Game World is a summer camp and after-school program that teaches kids 8 to 18 game development and software development. And we work with real game developers. They come in and they tutor the kids. And during our programs, we've helped the kids build over 150 prototypes. You want to do this? Some ranging from as short as 17 hours to some being over 36 hours. And what we found is that kids actually distill complex social interactions into clear rules and goals, and they help us understand how to prioritize fun. And what ought to be fundamentals of game development get boiled down when you're working with kids. So I'm Alicia, and I've been in the industry since 2005, and mostly on the art and the business side. And I started Game Worlds in around 2013-ish. And I'm approaching a lot of these rules from the mindset of a game developer who's been in the industry.
I am Leif. I'm the co-owner of Game Worlds. I've been industry adjacent for about 5 years. I've worked as a developer in a personal and professional capacity, and I'll be reflecting on the mindset of a newcomer. All right, we're also not going to talk about all of the slides in great detail because there's 12 of them. So this is commandment number 1, it's find the fun thing first. It is obviously important to make sure that the thing you are building is fun. It's also important to understand that whatever you're building might not be fun to you, but is fun to somebody. And once you've found the fun in a thing, make sure to preserve it through the entire development process.
So commandment number 2, game development itself should be fun. So while we want game development to be fun, a lot of times it can be soul-sucking. And kids like us always start out really excited and wanting to do a little bit of everything. But keeping that engagement alive during the slog of game creation can actually be really challenging. So there's actually some concrete ways we can keep the process itself engaging. Stuff that we all know but very rarely implement, like break down large amorphous tasks into smaller chunks so you feel like you're actually making progress. Visualize the tasks that you're doing, something as simple as post-it notes on a whiteboard, super successful with kids as well as adults. Allowing for more time when you can pick up that your team is really excited about an idea, let them run with it. Celebrating the weird and crazy ideas as having merit without just discounting them off the bat. Having tactile activities, something as simple as pen and paper to draw with, or design cards, or the design deck, physical game pieces, all of that sort of stuff can make a huge difference in engagement. And focus on getting something playable as soon as possible, even if it's ugly and broken, so you can iterate and see progress. And on a personal note, make an effort to find and cultivate the things that you find exciting. If that outlet isn't available at work or with the project that you're currently on, learn a new technique or skill outside of that environment. Teaching is a great way to reinvigorate passion and learn new things. We're happy to have you if you want to teach. And you absolutely can find 1 or 2 hours a week to do this. Use the time that you're spending on social media. And not every aspect of creating a game is going to be amazing or exciting, but the best games are fun to make, and we all got into this industry because we were excited, and we want to preserve that. Oh, sorry.
All right, so commandment 3 is everybody has a voice. So especially when you're new to the industry, it's really easy to fall into one of 2 patterns, especially on the design and development side. The first is that you're really overconfident in your own ideas, and you tend to tune out other voices because you kind of just assume that your ideas are the most well thought out. Don't do that. The second is being really shy because you assume that you have little or no experience, so you get little or no say in that whole process. Those are both extremes, so neither is great. Whether the context is a summer camp or a studio, don't just let the loudest kids talk. Make sure that everyone has a voice just for the sake of the collaboration that will result from it.
So, commandment number 4, you don't have to like each other, but you have to get along. Not everyone is going to be your friend, we all know this, that's okay, but respect is not an option, not for kids and especially not for adults.
Commandment 5 is rip ego. So it is absolutely about the team, and 99% of the time, it will never be just your game. And it's important to keep in mind that you are working towards something bigger than what you could ever do by yourself. All right, commandment 6 is candy is currency. So if you're the voice of authority, the team that you're working with is going to automatically trust you, and that relationship will start with some implicit assumption that you know what you're doing. The best way to reinforce that is by rewarding a job well done. So whether it's with candy or bonuses, acknowledging that someone did a good thing is a great way to make them feel good and also make them pretty confident that you do know what you're talking about because you acknowledged them. On the opposite end of this, when you're setting deadlines, if you set an unrealistic deadline for someone who's new, they're going to fail to meet that deadline. And when they do, they're going to feel really bad about themselves because they assume that you knowing what you were talking about set something reasonable. Also, if you do that for someone who's experienced, they're going to just assume that you don't know what you're talking about now, and will just begin to assume that you're kind of incompetent.
So, commandment number 7, we need it now. How many times have we heard that? And having something half done is the same as having something not done at all in terms of usefulness. Odds are, whatever piece you're working on is part of a larger whole, and having tunnel vision on just your section will actually block the other people on the team. You need to educate yourself on priorities of the entire project so that you have context, and learn to prioritize and work efficiently. Cultivating the idea that it needs to be done within a certain time frame can help you make realistic deadlines and rein in your scope. And odds are the system that you're building is itself flawed and somewhat hiccuped, and your part of it will most likely be the same. But if it's functional and it does what it needs to be, it does what it needs to, be prepared to call it done. As an artist, the first half of working on something is exciting and fun, and the last 25% is nightmarish because you're just trying to get to the point where you can call it finished. And one of the biggest killers of passion or engagement is that never-ending quest to achieve perfection. We psychologically need to be able to finish something to feel that sense of accomplishment. And no piece of art, system, code, audio, or level design is ever going to be perfect, so be okay with that. Accept it. So commandment number 8, flying couches are secretly awesome. Embrace your bugs and learn, you'll actually learn more from the broken things than you would if something worked perfectly the first time. And be proud of your bugs. That usually means that you tried something hard or challenging. You strove for something interesting.
Commandment number 9, everyone's horse sucks. So again, when you are new, the first time you do a thing is going to be really difficult. The only way to get better is to practice, and some great perspective to keep is that just like you, everybody at some point had to start at that place. Commandment 10, ice cream after crying. So it's really important for everyone to be aware of how your team members are doing emotionally, but it's especially important for a team leader. With kids, it's really easy because they wear their emotions on their sleeves, and you can give them ice cream and talk to them about their favorite game for 20 minutes, and they'll feel better. But some good habits to develop are just paying attention to the people around you, how they're doing emotionally, providing a platform for them to vent if and when they need to, and just generally being aware of how your actions affect how they're feeling at work. Our personal issues absolutely affect our professional lives. So just acknowledging what someone's dealing with opens doorways to flexible solutions that would otherwise not be available.
So commandment number 11, why it matters to lose. Validation and competition are important, and they help us recognize when somebody does something extraordinary. And treating losing instead of like a failure, but as an opportunity to strive towards a bigger goal has a huge impact. And then commandment number 12, and the last one, these parties are life. So for us, it's really important that the kids come out of our program with something valuable. And I think it's just as important that we as developers come out of something in our career with something valuable. Making prototypes with kids is like concentrated game development without all the adult noise. And the purpose of this talk is to introduce and probably remind you guys of concepts in development that ultimately benefit us as people. Most people start game development because they want to create something and share it with the world. But to do that, you need enough energy and balance in your life to be creative and maintain that passion. At the end of every week, we do a pizza party with the kids. They eat pizza, play games, they just get to hang out with their friends and go crazy, and it's our favorite time. The best way to recharge yourself is to make time with your friends and family. Make time to do things outside of game development that really energize you and excites you. And thank you so much for listening to our talk. If you want to teach, please come and talk to us. We love doing it, and I promise you it's a great way to be excited and passionate about the thing that you do. And I think that's it. So we have to wrap it up. So thank you guys.
Alright, so actually that was one more reason to have Microtalks is that you just witnessed a beta test of a much, basically the same talk, not done in 10 minutes, which they will be delivering at PAX South on Sunday.
We'll have more anecdotes about adorable children.
Now I know something more about how this is supposed to work, so whoa, hold on. Alright, so we're going to have one more speaker and then we're going to have a break, and then we'll come back and we'll have 2 more speakers, and then we'll have done with our show. But our next speaker runs Moonlit Studios, and this is the one honestly, no disrespect to any of the rest of the speakers, but I'm looking forward to this one. See how this one's going on. Please welcome Kamau Vassall.
Good night, everybody. I'm Kamau Vassall. I helped start Moonlit Studios with a small group of guys, and I'm here to talk to you about two games with a little bit of a double Microtalk in one. The games are All Stars Workers and Black Spades. So All Stars Workers, it wasn't just made by me, there was a couple of companies involved. So what is All Stars Workers? As you can tell from all the lovely graphics and character selection stage, it is a DDR-ish swiping game where your character dances based on how you swipe. You can see you have special content that you can unlock based on how good you do at the end of the levels, such as former President Obese. You can have, there's interesting levels such as the White House or even the moon. Your options are limitless. So to reiterate, All Stars Workers, it is a rhythm-based dance game. So all that happens, arrows start coming down, you swipe the correct direction, you get more points. If you don't swipe the correct direction, your character might fall over and mess up their dance move. We also feature an assortment of characters, as you saw President Obese. But we also, so as you can see, it's not just focused on women. We also have aliens, robots, etc. Some stats about the game. It's on iOS and Android, 2,000 likes on Facebook, and 100 plus daily active users. So, in terms of audience, so as we know, there might be an audience for these type of twerk games. But as we investigated the twerk game markets, we found that most of the content there was very limitless. They're very straight to the point and trying to visually gratify you, I guess. I don't know. And so we did sort of start there. We started with, hey, let's target maybe the male audience first. But you can't really innovate that much on game design and gameplay by being so narrow focused. So we said, what if we decide to make it a little bit more silly, add a little bit more humor? What if it's just not females twerking? Let's get some aliens inside there too. We decided to make the game a little bit cute and quirky, make it a little retro themed, as you guys can see, a little 70s going on. And then we launched the game, and it paid off, because that's actually what people enjoy the most. We know that because players will immediately let you know what they like about your game. Either you hand them a build or you release the game and they play, they will be welcome to like, this is the best part of the game. They'll be very adamant about that. So some reviews. So as you can see, some of the reviews are by, I don't know how well this is actually showing up. Probably not that well.
Good. Yeah,
but you can see some of the reviewers are female. Some of the reviewers are just talking about how the hilarious of the game. Some of our players are a little underage and need to be blurred out, because they're probably a 12-year-old that just wanted to find a silly app and came across it. So, on to Black Spades. So, this game was also made with a consortium of different companies, and Moonlit Studios actually just did contract work for this. So what is Black Spades? Another mobile app. As you can see, it is a card game, top-down view. You play on a table and choose if you're familiar with the rules of spades, you want the highest card and the highest suit. It has multiplayer, single player, leaderboards, and etc. So, what is Black Spades? So yeah, the traditional trick-taking card game. The thing that is particular to this game, though, is that it has specific rules to the African American community. So the way that I grew up playing spades, I thought was the only way to play spades. Apparently there is more than one way to play this game. And if you were to go onto the mobile market and type in spades, you would be playing a different spades than the only way I know how to play spades. And so it has things like reneging, jokers, deuces, blinds, and etc. Some stats about it is that it's on iOS, Android, Amazon, 800,000 sessions, and about 1,000 new users per month. So, audience for this, some of this is obvious. We're targeting a niche here in this case. So you have 60% of Americans playing games on smart devices. We know that if you look at card games and you look at spades, there's even a smaller subset, how many of these have the African American rules? And actually none of them did. So it was a very simple problem to solve. Just release a game and see what you get. So all we did was first envision the game that we knew playing as kids, and we just put that into mobile form. Then we launched the game. And again, the players will let you know what they like about your game. In this case, we had something surprising that allowed us to get a second market, just like the previous game. We released the game, and people in Baltimore were like, "This is not how we play spades." People in Miami were like, "That's not our rules either." So all you do at that point is a win-win situation. You release more content and more rules into the game that they have to unlock. Some reviews. So people talking about house rules, things like that. And some people talking about like that is the only way they knew how to play spades. They were just glad that a spades app with their rules finally showed up. So to conclude, always consider a secondary audience or more audiences than that even. Because when you do that, for one, you can increase the amount of market share and the amount of users that are going to be trafficking into your game. As long as when you do this, you do not ruin your core gameplay elements. So the game of spades didn't drastically change, and we didn't drastically change the game that we had originally visioned for All-Star Twerkers. As long as you can keep that all in focus, then go for it. Along with that, you should make your game as accessible as possible. So that's just ease of use. So things like localization, getting it translated in different languages, having it on as many mobile devices or on console, as many consoles as possible. Making sure it's the ease of play, especially at the beginning, having intuitive design and UI. Niche markets. Obviously that was the biggest win for Black Spades. So you can do things like the female market is growing, XR, VR, AR, big hype right now. One that's drastically underlooked is ethnic culture groups. That's how we were able to get inside there with Black Spades. And I guess to reiterate, always find out what your players love and want, and they'll be vocal about letting you know that. So as long as you're receptive and you can monetize off of what they want as well, and give them what they want. So, and that's it.
Another milestone for Microtalks, we talk about the existing twerk game market. It's important research to do. So, in the spirit of Microtalks, take out your timepieces and count down 10 minutes from now, and we will take a break and come right back to the talks.
Seriously, he sent me these videos. It's like, this is how
That is true. We've been doing that for like 3 hours.
No, yeah, I remember talking to the animators, and I was like, I know you're gonna have to watch a lot of twerk videos to make sure you get the
Yeah, all I have to worry about is getting my other ironed out. Like figuring out like 4 hours of after that, and then make sure I some other like Emily and Nate and Bonnie and I don't know who else. They're doing
This is hard to make great. I literally just like broke him and sleep the game class. Right?
Yeah. And so I'm definitely going there. I'm driving tonight. Yeah, so after this tonight, we're going to go right now.
Oh, you're actually
I have no card. Like we were just like that, like
piano for years and years, and then I started doing music for years.
yeah. We're always looking for audio lectures. We're always reading audio lectures.
I should have just showed that. That's what the minute.
The audio.
No, so there's always kids, so usually we're going to and then of course we have a ton of students tonight. So always looking
we have over kind of West Campus being there.
Curriculum, guest lectures, guest judges, guest
You said from 18 yes.
Yeah, still like my substitute teaching, ride share, just on board with financial services. Hey, how you doing?
It's called, it's entrepreneurial parents and kids making games, so it'll be 45 minutes,
Those are totally yeah, I'm trying to. What are y'all working on? Audio only.
Nice.
Yeah, so like that's what
absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, music sound effects, instrumentation, like
most of the things right now
okay.
Which I can run you through or whatever, but they're starting to like range the board and they're starting to really long stuff.
Oh wow, yeah.
So this next year they're like we're talking about a lot of things, so it'd be nice to go ahead and see some work and do
how old is he? Perfect. That's a great age.
Things like lots of flyers, lots of stuff on flyers, so this is kind of where I'm at.
You got to work?
I was just started with started like on Tuesday. They go twice a week. I always see them once a week.
Yes, they built an entire prototype in a week, so they do.
What you call them?
Yep, that's a team. The teams are actually out there part of that management experience.
I used to teach actual mechanics.
Nice. Yeah.
I never teach video
like general teaching pedagogy is not really that different. It's just that like.
Oh, you mean like music theory?
That's totally fine. Like what I do a little bit on my end as far as like the audio side of things is concerned, it's more of the software side of things, like teaching kids how to use digital hardware, how to like. What's interesting is that I mean,
You do? Okay.
I mean, it's really ultra accessible as far as the kids are concerned. Like, it's real easy to get into, like low cost to actually get a commercialized or not commercialized site for that. And it's got a 6-day free trial, which technically never ends. So that's what I've been using for a lot of my tutorials as far as as far as the music side of things go, I honestly don't really touch on theory at all. What's interesting is that I'm usually teaching kids like, okay, here's how you create an instrument, here's how you create tracks, here's how you put on the tracks, and here's how you put basically here's how you write the notes. They're following the whole basic rules of music theory without actually having to know what they are. I don't program like I basically give them a bunch of on that or something. Okay, cool. Figure one on your other monitor. I got two monitors. Over here, like pull up figure one over here on this other monitor. That's like this is enough for the first couple measures of the finals like that. Use this to put in use this to put in the notes for the first couple measures of the bass. Play it back, make sure it sounds right. Great. Close it. Create another media item on the second track. Bring up this other finger on this other computer. Ladder into the
There's so many developers. Oh, perfect. Yes, tell him that. Tell him about that. Tell him he can get like a special badge or t-shirt.
I was it's like the stigma of like if I'm in there so like not to be a DJ or something. You know what I mean? Like that's how the parents are banned
One thing, attention everyone, I forgot to tell everyone, if you parked in the garage, you will definitely want to check in at the front desk and get a validation sticker because you want to only pay $5 to get out as opposed to like 20. So please do that. Do not leave this floor without checking in. He'll just give you one. And while we're on break, do it now if you haven't already. Thank you.
When summer rolls around this year, it'll be my third year. Because the summer that just passed, summer 2017, like a month. Summer 2016 was the first year that I did artist tutorials. So and then I started doing the after-school program back to the fall. I was doing one program for the fall, and I was roll around and now they're each program is only a week long. So basically what happens is I'm coming around like 9, so I come in like get checked in, and they go from like 9 to about 5 or so. hours on end, like you'll have some time to discuss times at Seifert, times at Seifert, what's going to last there's also time set aside for tutorials and lectures, and they do that every Friday. And then, that's how it is on Thursday. Thursday they get lectures. This lesson. Things one day you get on this now. Friday, finishing up prototypes. And then, a lot of free time. They get practice presentation for real. They get a chance to show the presentation in front of research. And the first time around, and then the second time around, when they do it for real, they'll be back there.
Let's be honest, that one was pretty bad. Okay, I remember.
Parents and the audience, and they real. And then each party until they can't there's like last summer there was like 10 weeks worth. And I was there. Yeah, there are a lot of repeat kids, there are a lot of first timers as well. So there are usually a good number of students that will come back. So that's okay when it's time.
I mean, I'm not over
It's really weird. It's like, so certain. There's been a whole
That's how it is with like not just with camps and stuff like that, but like with classes and especially the crazy they're doing that because they want to get that but yeah, a lot of the same finance as far as contracts and stuff.
What's it like running this camp with kids all day? Do you really get the full spread of like 5 days there?
Yeah, so it's we do the most highest concentration.
I guess I've been like all the outfits that they all do with this. Like
we've been going for
we actually, so the guy who did Black Slave, that actually bought my
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started again.
Now there's even more.
there you go.
So we're trying to
Thanks everyone again.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If you get your food and drink for the next 20 minutes, we'll be in good shape. Wanted to give a shout out to our bartender for the evening, Katie. She's been with us for the last 3 shows. She likes the show. But she does have a tip jar, so please show your appreciation.
And there's more beer to drink.
Yes, and please drink our beer. Even if you don't drink our LaCroix. That's fine too.
boy, that's serious.
Excellent, yes. There's so many outfits in Austin that's trying to steal their thunder now. There's like Waterloo and about 5 different other brands. It's not raw water. Don't drink that. That's bad. Yes, exactly. It's bad flavor too. But anyway, our next Microtalks speaker, his label is Retora Games, and he's come from many different places around the world, in America in particular. Please welcome. And also he's doing all the legwork for the Global Game Jam coming up at the end of the month. Once again, Coleman.
So, the topic of audience, I want to discuss how to be a community manager when you are your only employee. So, also how to make a full-time job not full-time. So a little bit about me and particularly the game I'm describing. So the game is Merchant. Right now it has about 900,000 downloads on the Android store. We have 38,000 reviews. We have a ton of players. I think daily active is like 3,000, 5,000 users a day. So it's pretty big for a company size of one. And with that comes a community, and a community that loves to talk. We also have a pretty active meta. The game changes every time I patch it, and they hate it, but then they love it, but then they hate it, and there's a lot to deal with there. So it's a lot to handle, and if you're a solo dev, or even if you're a small team, under 10 people, I think this applies, because you really can't afford to have a full-time community manager when you're only paying 5 or 6 people. So first and foremost, my number one piece of advice is use what's used. Don't make your own forums. Just don't. There's no reason to. There's Reddit, there's Facebook groups, there's Twitter even. There's no reason to make people make a whole new login just for your game that they may only play for a couple weeks. You're going to have a much better barrier of entry for players. Your conversion rate is going to be way higher. Just let them use the Reddit that they already have. Let them use the Facebook they already have. The amount of people you lose that don't have Reddit or Facebook is negligible to the amount you would lose if they have to go to some BBS site to sign up, make a new account, and confirm it with their email and go through all this process just to say, hey, I don't like this character. So just let them go on Reddit, let them go on Facebook. It's a lot easier. I can't stress that enough. It's saved me so much time. But once you get there, it's important to engage and promote involvement. So this is in-game, the screenshot. Pop-up news notification comes up. You click on that little button and it brings you to this Reddit page. So this Reddit page is our announcement. Our announcement isn't in the game, it's on the Reddit. It brings you to the Reddit in the game, and then that one alone had 43 comments in the first couple of days. People come, they log in, they say, yo, this better fix the bug I hate. Yo, this better fix the rogue because it's broken, nerf please. And they will go there to complain. You will get all your feedback in one nice, lovely location. What's also nice about it is it actually creates conversation. So I don't know if you can read this. So this is some of the comments from this big reveal post earlier. And essentially what happens here is this guy says, hey, I have nothing to do with dialysis all day but play this game, so it's amazing. And this guy responds and says, hey, I don't know if you know this where you live, but there's this thing called nocturnal hemodialysis. You should check it out because my father-in-law does it and it completely saved his life. And they have a full conversation about dialysis on my Reddit. Now, am I going to kick them? Am I going to ban them? That's off topic. How dare you? No, of course not. This is a conversation. Let them talk about whatever. Just be happy they're doing it on your forum or your Reddit, So a lot of this kind of stuff happens. Totally allow it. Don't ever try to prevent any sort of conversation from occurring. Of course, anything that's not safe for work or dangerous or threatening, remove that immediately, but allow anything else off topic. Also encourage unofficial offsites. So the one on this left here, Merchant DB, is a website that a couple of our fans made. It's a full website with calculators where you can choose the items for a hero and it tells you what damage they do and all this. They completely reverse engineer the game on this website. I'm not going to take that down. Why would I cease and desist that? That's one more thing players can use, one more part of the community. They also opened a Discord channel. I go on there once in a while just to see why they hate me this week. It's a great place. It's a great place. I go in, I pop in, I say hi, I talk to them, and they love that. Oh my God, the developer's here. And it's yeah, I just chill on Discord once in a while and say hi to you guys. Probably playing PUBG, but I'll stop and say what's up. So the other big thing is sourcing moderators from the community. So again, I can't be 24 hours. I can't check in constantly. There are times when I'm working on other things, not this project, where I may not look at the Reddit for a couple of days. It's important to have those moderators, but you can't be that moderator. You can't hire a moderator. So find those community members that are most engaged and let them be your moderators. Now the one caveat to that is that you have no accountability. You can't fire them. You can't punish them. You can't take away their pay. If the moderators decide to stop showing up, hey man, that's just bad luck. So that's what comes with the territory. The best you can do is offer to reward them for when they are there. But I will say in general, having 2 or 3 moderators that have been completely volunteer has been more than enough for us, and we've really never run into any issues. Alpha and beta access is a reward. So using Google Play on the mobile store, you can have this beta process where people can sign up and they get beta versions of the game. So when I do daily or weekend builds, I push it to them, they tell me what's broken. They're actually my QA team. So that's a whole nother talk of how to QA for one. But they find my bugs, they tell me what's wrong, they send bug reports before I push it out to the big world. Another caveat on that, especially for a game that's like a long-term play, you've been playing for weeks, you don't want them going in not knowing they'll lose their save files. Because then you get bombed with a bunch of 1-star reviews because oh shit, I got the beta and all of my heroes are gone. I've been spending the past 6 months playing this game. Where are my heroes? It's like, you should have read the fine print. It says that happens. So we dealt with that a few times. So it's very important when you do any sort of, hey, come get this free early access, beta access, big red letters, shit will break, be ready for it. And most people still love it. They're totally on board to be before their friends. So, and then the other big one, and this one has been strange for me because it's been very experimental, but make time for events. So just like any other community QR or PR marketing, you want to have some sort of big events, big reveals, big showcases when you promote stuff. Even as a person of one, I can put in enough time to make events. So we've done community contests. So these are examples from an art contest. I love the bunny killer, he's so awesome. And these were 4 of the pieces that we selected from an art contest, and we gave them $20 in the Google Play Store because they probably have already bought everything in our game, so we might as well give them money for other stuff, right? So we did about 3 or 4 of these. The biggest problem I found was actually going through and reviewing all the contest entrants and picking the winner is way more time consuming than announcing a contest. And I knew it would take longer. I didn't realize how much longer it would take. But it's certainly worth the weekend of time it takes, the 2 or 3 days to build one of these contests. This one's not for the faint of heart, but doing an ARG. So I ran an ARG for Merchant, and I don't know if you can see there's 582 comments on just this one thread about trying to figure out what the ARG was and solve the riddle. This put us on the top of people's Reddits for that week. Because they had us subscribed, if you guys kind of know how Reddit works, whatever groups you subscribe to, if something gets enough votes, it shows up on top. People were getting top paged to their Reddits because of this, and it actually brought a lot of users back that hadn't played the game for a while, because it was its own little mini game within Reddit, so it kind of brought the Reddit community back, and it was tons of fun to make. Making ARGs is, I want that as a full-time job. So if anyone is hiring for specifically making ARGs, meetups and live streams. So I've run a couple of meetups, a couple live streams. I'll just get on Hangouts and I'll post to the Reddit and be like, yo, for the next 3 hours, I'll be in Hangouts. Hop in. And this is way better than Twitch because they actually get in. We had one time a guy got in and he didn't realize that by joining a Hangouts, his video would kick on. And he's just chilling on his recliner, shirtless on his laptop, and he sees himself and they're just whoa, jeez. And I was like, oh yeah, sorry. He showed him how to turn the video off, and then next thing you know, it's this fan isn't just a Twitch stream posting icons in a Twitch chat. He's actually talking to us. And it's 3 or 4 fans at a time, first come, first serve, and they're like, hey, when are you gonna fix the road? And it's I know, I will. But I love your game, I play it all the time, it's my bus ride, it's what gets me going. So it's a really great way to do it. Twitch, obviously, do dev streaming. I suck at that, so I shouldn't even put it on there. But it's a nice option. So these are a couple more final thoughts about trying to run community management for one. No particular order. Leave a sense of mystery. When I post patch notes, I don't tell them exactly what I did and how I did it and all the different changes. When people ask, hey, what is the drop rate of this character? Let me know. I don't tell them. It's up to them to figure it out. Let the theory crafting commence. If you give them a detailed, I changed the attack damage from 0.25 to 0.28, they know. They've solved it. There's nothing for them to discuss. So kind of giving that sense of mystery and let them discover it. I guarantee if your game has any bit of popularity in any sort of nerd community, someone is going to tear your code open anyway and look at everything you wrote, so just let them do it. When do I scale up? When do I hire my community manager? I'm not the person to ask that. Ask Mojdeh or someone who's run a large company, Gordon probably. John's worked in community management. Sorry, John. Also, and this is really important, and I would easily do a whole talk on this, but really screw the people who don't like it and give you bad reviews and shit on you. Just don't look at it regularly. It tears you apart, and there's no value in it. I will say, at least on Google Play, you can respond to negative reviews, and I've seen a lot of those 1 stars turn to 5 stars. So definitely look at them, reply to them, but don't let it get you down, because you're going to get so many more positive reviews. If you're making something good, it doesn't really matter. But with that said, don't be Babs. Who knows what the Streisand effect is? If you complain about the complainers, they will complain more, and it becomes a vicious spiral, so don't do that. So if you do talk to them, Don't piss them off for us. All right, lastly, this is my bonus trivia question. Can anyone guess what cliche this is?
Nevada spread?
What's that?
Nevada spread?
Close. You got the second part right. What game is that on the left?
Marathon.
Uh-huh. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You're going to be running the community for 2 to 3 years, not a week, so build appropriately. Okay, last one is be open to opportunity. So this is really cool. I can't talk about how amazing this is. This guy, Dennis, he's from Belarus. He's a fan of ours. He wrote that merchant DB site, or he worked on it. And I recently have gotten him to sign a contract, an NDA, and this is a spreadsheet list of all the changes he wants to add, and I'm going to push a build to beta with all the changes he's made with the code that I've given him to my game, and he's going to make a whole different balance pass with the game that he's just a fan of. So be open to opportunities. If someone wants to really help and get involved, get the legalese stuff out of the way, but go for it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think someone who might be watching tonight will appreciate the Bungie reference.
Yeah.
Let me give you just a sec to figure out how to present the last. You can just keep watching or go into the box. On the subject of speeches, or rather of the formats and how we were going to have Q&A, who wants to have it? Like, more importantly, let's ask about the speakers first. Like, would you even want to do that? Since we actually have time to do that tonight. You don't have to answer, just think about it. But, I mean, we only have to get out of here at 9 o'clock. I mean, we actually do have to do that because, like, they want to keep staff here and they want to send their people home. Very good. Okay.
Just to make it up.
Better job, very good. No.
Now I have no choice but
Put your arms in the air. Look like Kermit the Frog.
Yes. Flip tables, things that shouldn't light on fire, light on fire. Where's the fire door? It's on fire!
Well, this is the thing I should have done in the first place. I mean, look, I'm the host, all right, so.
No, that's the kind of pyrotechnic I want to be, the ironic pyrotechnic.
With the name ironic.
Excellent.
Ironic.
All right.
Ironic.
We have one more speaker tonight. She is one of the co-owner of Certain Affinity here in Austin, and she has been on a lot of trips lately, and she's going to talk about it. Mojdeh Gharbi.
Thank you for.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you for setting this up. I told John before that if everything tanks, I'm going to start singing. You do not want to hear me sing. So really, I wanted to talk to you guys about how do you manage multiple audiences, right? I've had an opportunity recently to really speak to a pretty diverse group of folks. And how do you kind of keep that in mind and balance all the different pieces that you need to know and you want to talk about, and also kind of make sure that it's relevant to the audiences. So before we kind of jump into that, I wanted to kind of take a pause to give you some context, and I thought it may be a good starting point to talk about my own background. So as John mentioned, I'm the co-owner of Certain Affinity and the VP of Marketing and Operations. I've been, have probably about 20 plus years of experience, mostly around operations, marketing, sales, and I actually graduated from UT here in Austin in advertising, and I got a degree in and a minor in business. So had a little bit of a context both in the advertising world and also in business when I started And I've had pretty much a pretty diverse background. You can't get any more diverse. I've done real estate before. I worked for the largest ad agency when I started my career out in Chicago, live on that. Went to Microsoft, worked for 12 years for Microsoft, and then finally joined Max. He already had started Certain Affinity, and I joined him finally about 6 years ago. So kind of know about all kinds of different industries. And more than anything, I'm really passionate about people who talk to me and work with me know that you know, I'm really an advocate. I get very excited, especially to kind of help other folks and kind of help, you know, with their own career. But also passionate about the community, passionate about business, passionate about what's happening, you know, today. And if you think about, especially the political climate, I think there's a lot of reasons for us to be engaged, right? To be local, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've been doing a lot more activities. I think for a long time, Certain Affinity was really a developer at heart, and they were kind of under the radar for a long time. And we decided that, you know what, we wanted to kind of have more of a voice, more of a representation out there about what we think the industry should be, about as a leader what we want to represent, and also just good common sense stuff about what it means to be in Austin. We're homegrown, and what it means to be also a business owner. So just a little bit before we jump in, and then, so what's the opportunity? And I talk about that a little bit at a personal level, but also from a business perspective. One, you know, I was fortunate enough being, you know, at the level that I am as an executive, you know, you get asked a lot to come and talk to different types of topics. And at first, I'll tell you it's intimidating. I always grumble. My whole team knows. Every time I get asked to do something, I'm like, oh God, here it comes. But I do enjoy it deep down. I think I'm just in denial at first, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. But I really do enjoy interacting with people, and I really do enjoy seeing everyone else's reaction. And if they can take one thing from the conversation we have, and they can make it into a positive experience for themselves, then that's what matters the most. And so for me, it was a platform. Here I am being asked to do a lot of different talks about many different topics. And it's really a platform for me to be a voice for people who don't have that. So really I see it as an opportunity to be a voice for the voiceless, really. And also I think as leaders, we have an obligation to be engaged, to be involved at a social level, at a moral level, at a cultural level. So it's important for us to have our voices out there, more now than ever. So again, it's an opportunity to kind of be involved. And then all of us are in technology. You know it's changing so quickly. And it's important to understand that. It's important to talk about that. It's important to engage with others who are outside of the technology space about that fact. Because it's an evolving thing. We as business owners, we as community folks have to be flexible, have to be moving with the speed of technology. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So again, being a voice for that. And then finally, just these issues matter to me personally. They matter to my employees. They matter to you guys. They matter to the community at large. So that is why I chose to be engaged. And that's why John has seen a lot of posts recently with a lot of different talks. So just to kind of give you a glimpse of when I say multiple audiences, what I'm talking about. This could be in a day, this could be in a week. I could talk to anyone from our mayor, to business owners, to investors, to bankers, to our staff, to game developers, you name it. And by the way, one of the first lessons in terms of really understanding how to connect with different audiences, for me came when I made the switch from just being in technology and software development, working at Microsoft, to working in game development. I don't think you can get more of a diverse group of audiences than in game development, right? In a given day, I'm either talking to a designer, an artist, an engineer, a business person, a finance person, someone in IT, you name it, right? And it just involves our own internal staff. It doesn't even speak to all the other external audiences I have to talk to at a given moment. So it was a really good lesson, and I learned that right away, that I had to adjust how I was as a person when I was talking to these different audiences. Because I needed to make sure that I was able to make that emotional connection. I was able to make and be able to speak the same language with them before they could actually hear what I had to say and bring that credibility. So what was some of the learnings, right? And this year was a big one for me. And by the way, if any of you has ever seen me talk in any other capacity, the two things I really don't like is photos and videos. And so I've also had to get in front of a lot of different press recently, and boy, I hate that. But it's been a great growth for me personally, and it's been really good to develop those skill sets and develop, how do you speak in front of a camera, and how do you make it as natural as possible, right? And all those things, and how do you not lose your words, right? Because that can happen. So in terms of big learnings, I think the first one is really know what the audience really cares about. To do that, I have many different tricks. In fact, when I usually have a big talk, one of the first things I do, and this I've been asked a lot, like how do you kind of get rid of a lot of the nerves that you have normally when you're talking? And it's just to go around the room and talk to people, right? But strangers, doesn't matter. But when you start to talk to people and get to know them, then some of that anxiety, some of that, oh my gosh, I'm in front of all these strangers that don't know me, go away, right? And so when I'm talking to people, usually by the time I'm speaking, I probably have worked the room enough that I know a bunch of people in the room. And so when I'm talking to all of them. It's no longer a room full of strangers. I don't care if it's 500 people or if it's 20 people. It's the same kind of a thing. And so understanding what's important to them is good, because again, back to the emotional connection you need to make as a speaker. The second thing is to be able to customize, right? You have to have enough self-awareness to know when you lost people. And sometimes people have a hard time with that, but really kind of looking around the room, are people still awake? Are they still nodding, right? Are they still responding to engaging with you, right? And so make sure that you're flexible and you're kind of aware of what's happening in the room, and be able to be flexible. I've been on the stage before, even at our studio, completely said wrong things that were on the slide, last minute slides changed, and at some point I was like, guys, you know the slides better than I do, why don't we start talking it together? Like, just make it up as you go, right? And you have to be flexible, not be afraid to sometimes make mistakes at the end of the day. I think it's also important to be yourself. I've been told that a lot. I'm not gonna BS. I am who I am, this is what you see. And I think that authenticity is very, very important. And that's how you're able to connect to people at the end of the day. And then, obviously doing your homework is important. And the last two items, one of them talks about, staying with the facts and being professional. The other one is kind of finding the common ground with tough issues. Really hits home, especially for me. I've been engaged with several different types of even political topics, everything from skill talent to our job crisis in Austin to going to DC and advocating for some bipartisan bills recently. And frankly, some of the folks I had to talk to were maybe folks that weren't necessarily in line with a lot of the different topics that I personally care about. But at the end of the day, when it comes to those things, you have to be able to put those things aside and figure out where are those common grounds. They care about jobs, they care about the economy, they care about job creations. Okay, fine, I can focus on those things for the next 5 minutes. Because back to, I got the platform where others didn't, to be that voice and to be able to be an advocate for topics that matters to all of us. So that's what I would leave you with. So again, it's a lot of things to take in, but hopefully this was helpful. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Mojdeh. Well, we've come to the end of our planned program for this evening. Did anyone have any particular questions for any of the speakers tonight? And you have an opportunity to meet them in person and treat them like human beings. People are not NPCs, okay? You don't get to just push their buttons until you get the dialogue options you want.
So you're not bringing ice cream today?
In any case, what did you have?
I would have a general question. I can't remember who it was that talked about, I guess it was a common undercurrent that, keeping multiple audiences in mind, being able to adapt to a secondary target you didn't initially forecast. And I was just curious for like the general developers here, like, do you ever find that comes at odds with what your vision for the game was? And does that kind of come to the fact that you have to let your ego go and be willing to maybe compromise or sacrifice a little bit of what you wanted your baby to be for maybe monetizing something more successfully?
I think there's elements of both Kamau's talk and Alicia's as well, but go ahead, Kamau.
In terms of, from my perspective, I wouldn't want the audience to design my video game. So like, I mean, maybe that's me because I also worked in like slots as well, or different things where like if they want as much free money in casinos as possible, right? So you want, if you just give them that, then the enjoyment actually goes down. So sometimes like holding back a little bit, you do yourself a service, you do them a service. So I would say focus on what is actually fun in terms of your gameplay and your game design. And then once you have that core element, try to make it just like super accessible in order to get more of a big audience.
Tyler had said also having patch notes that are vague and don't describe anything in particular, and they'll ask you particular questions about how the game works, and you say, nah.
No, they hate me for it. I think also, like, I'm blessed in the sense that I'm a team of one, and I quite honestly don't give a shit if no one plays my games. Yeah. So, like, I mean, I'm happy to make this really weird niche game that's, like, all about deciphering alien languages, and, like, 20 people are into it. So be it. Like, I do contract work so I can do that. And because it's, for me, it's very much a, I don't know, it is an ego driver to make those games, but they potentially don't make money. So,
that is something that developers can do these days.
Yeah.
This is you didn't have to have a shiny box on the shelf at electronics boutique. We don't have electronics boutique anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So
you'd be amazed at how many people still find those games and like them. So.
There you go. Yeah, that was one thing I actually had this whole other separate talk, but then I realized I just wanted to talk about why I like Microtalks, and that was relevant to the audience thing. But the idea that games just have an unlimited audience, none of them do. All of them ought to have at least a target. If other people like it, then that's a bonus. But you ought to have at least you have an idea of who it is. But of course, there's flaws to that. As Kamau noted, there are a lot of people who don't cater to women or black people. And those are underserved markets. So if you actually make a game intentionally, you might actually hit your target. And it's a target that no one else is hitting. Any other questions? I'm not twisting anyone's arm here, but why don't I let you spend the next half hour, because we do have the time, talking amongst each other. Please have another drink if you are so inclined. And I might ask you for some help putting the tables back, because I actually want us to have it as a classroom as they always did. But I do want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Of all the things you could have done on a Thursday night, you spent our time with us. So we'll be doing this again next month, second Thursday in February, and have a good night when you go.
What's the topic?
The topic is Mark Tate, whatever he's wanted to talk about, we don't know yet.
Scientific games here in town?
I think it's actually about being a good producer, which I like because I don't think a lot of game developers have experienced the value add for a producer before. He seems to think that he knows what he's doing, so he's going to talk about that.
Thank you, John, for putting this together.
Thanks for our speakers, because I had fun listening, and hopefully everyone else did as much as I did. So. If you're going to PAX South, you can see me on stage at the Falcon Room in the Breaking Into the Industry panel, run by Rich Weil, and along with Bradley Johnson and Linda Carlson from Trying to Learn Worlds. So,
which day is that on?
Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. I'm not going home tonight. I'm actually going south directly from here because I live up north of here, and I'm going to the La Quinta Inn in San Marcos. spend the night there. It's cheaper than San Antonio,
I'm
so.
actually going and I have an extra pass I have to get rid of now.
Oh.
Anybody want to buy a PAX pass?
Yes, maybe.
Talk about it. Because the 3-day passes are, is it a 3-day pass or?
Full
Oh,
3
wow, because they're sold out of those.
Yeah, my friend got sick.
Alright, talk to me.
Maybe. Maybe.
You might get a buyer here tonight. But anyway, I'm gonna tear down. Enjoy yourself.
What an hour away. What do you mean?
I don't know. I mean, it's really up to him. Do you want to go?
You already got your pass?